We all remember BET, right? Black Entertainment Television, home of classic shows like Rap City, 106 in Park, Cedar's World. In the late 90s and early 2000s, BET was a huge part of the culture, serving as like the black MTV of sorts. But over the years, it's almost become a meme of how much BET sucks these days. It's crazy, but it's almost consensus that BET is nowhere near what they used to be. And why is that? Let's find out. I'm Nate the Great from TakeFlight214.com, and this is the rise and fall of BET. But before we get into it, don't forget to smash that like button. Liking and sharing the video is the best way to help us to continue to grow as a channel. But with that being said, get right into it. I recently saw a video on the rise and fall of MTV, and it got me thinking how similar the stories are. Some might think that MTV came first, and I myself was guilty of this too for some reason, but no. BET was launched on January 25th of 1980, whereas MTV didn't launch until the following year. The channel was founded by cable lobbyist Robert Johnson and his wife Sheila. BET was created to fill a void that Bob felt was in the entertainment industry at the time. His vision was to produce positive black programming that dealt with perspectives of a then truly underrepresented community. BET premiered modestly as a channel that ran 2 hours of weekly programming in select East Coast cities. By the end of the year, it extended its viewership throughout North America and the Caribbean and expanded programming to 24 hours of news and entertainment. One of the first shows to ever air on the network was Bobby Jones Gospel, which actually aired all the way up until 2016. Video Soul was another one of the earlier shows which aired first in 1981. But also in 81, BET became the first network to broadcast black college sports in prime time. In 1988, they debuted BET News, which was hosted by journalist Ed Gordon. The show focused on issues relevant to the black demographic as well as pop culture in general. Teen Summit premiered the following year as a personal project of Sheila Johnson, Bob's wife. The show was similar to BET News, except it focused on issues affecting mainly teenagers. The earlier shows and theme of the channel itself were all geared around positive imagery. After all, this was one of the original goals for why Bob Johnson even started the channel. This is also why they were reluctant to move into airing rap programming and were dragged into it kicking and screaming. But as rap quickly became a larger part of the American culture as a whole, and after MTV, who previously didn't air rap either, began to do so, BET had to follow suit. And with this, Rap City was born in 1989. The decision would anger many of the old school viewers. After all, Bob was an uptight 1980s intellectual type, and so were many of his viewers. And many in that crowd didn't like rap at all. So they cried bloody murder when the channel finally folded, so to speak. But what did they expect? Rap was taking over the hearts and minds of the youth of America, not to mention was largely comprised of young black people. So to be a channel focusing on black culture and not include rap would have been kind of stupid. The 90s saw BET explode into the zeitgeist of America. Earlier on, they brought a lot of black sitcoms to the market with shows like Rock, Thea, What's Happening Now, and tons of others. But arguably the most iconic show to launch in the 90s was Comic View, which first aired in 1992 and ran all the way up until 2014. A huge turn for BET came in 2000 when they sold to Viacom for $3 billion. And at the time, they were reaching around 90 million households. Many would say that this marked the beginning of the downfall for BET, but the acquisition started off pretty good, as they would introduce tons of shows that would become legendary for people in my age range. Shows like 106 in Park, Hits from the Street, College Hill, Access Granted, and BET Uncut were all launched after the Viacom deal. Viacom is a large conglomerate that owns other networks like VH1 and MTV, and once they bought BET, you could see the transformation into what many of their other channels were like at the time. Critics of the deal took issue with the fact that a once 100% black-owned network were quite literally selling out to big business. And although it all started out good, a change was on the horizon that would revolutionize the music business as a whole. As the 2000s rolled on, the internet became a larger part of everyday life. Prior to the days of high-speed internet, if you wanted to get a glimpse of your favorite music artist, you were limited in the ways you can get that done. The only way you could get access into their lives was through the occasional magazine interview or music videos and TV shows. And the only way you could see these were through monthly publications or TV networks like BET or MTV. With the rise of the internet, now you can watch whatever video you wanted on YouTube or follow the artist's social media for daily insight. There were increasingly fewer reasons to watch a TV channel, to sit for hours hoping that they played the video you wanted to see when you could just pull it up on the web in a matter of seconds. Because of this, many of the network's flagship shows began losing viewers by the late 2000s going into the 2010s. Slowly, one by one, all of the once popular video shows began to disappear. Midnight Love in 2005, Rap City in 2008, and finally, 106 in Park in 2014. When those shows died, BET had to replace the time slots with something else. And to do so, they began airing more reality shows and sitcoms. Recently, they even started a partnership with director Tyler Perry to air content created by him on their network and the streaming service BET+. But the problem with this was, these shows weren't that good. Okay, that's putting it lightly. Most of these shows were ass. I personally have never been a fan of Tyler Perry's stuff, so I honestly never watched any of them at all. But when you look at the thoughts and reviews of people who have, they don't look too good. On Twitter, fans commented, quote, "The quality of work is trash. It's horrible. I've tried so many times to watch something he's done, and it's all bad. The writing, the acting, the story, everything. And it's not getting any better," end quote. Another user tweeted out a clip of the show with the following caption, "Just because Tyler Perry is black doesn't mean he should get a pass for putting out mediocre TV shows. Like, what the f is this?" End quote. In the years since, music has ceased to be viable for TV stations, not to mention more and more people cutting the cord altogether. BET has struggled to maintain. They tried to hang on with award shows and reruns of once popular sitcoms, but nothing has worked. They even tried to launch their own streaming app, BET+, but still, nothing. Many of the critics attack BET for selling to Viacom and promoting quote-unquote negativity, but I personally think Viacom was onto something, at least in the early days. Shows like 106 in Park and College Hill were staples of my and many others' childhood. And all of those were created under the Viacom watch. It's easy to say that Viacom and BET should have just stayed on the path that they were on. But the shift in the way that we consume music has affected BET and MTV in ways that I'm not sure they could have done anything about. Sure, they could have probably done things like lean back into sports and try to find more ways to involve music culture. But sports contracts are super expensive, and social media is a much better way to connect in to artists. So would that have even worked? As a kid growing up in the late 90s and early 2000s, both BET and MTV were key parts of my generation. But maybe that's just it. They worked for the time, but maybe they were always doomed to this destiny of obsolescence. Hardly any of the cable networks from my childhood have been able to successfully transition into the new millennium of entertainment. Just think about it. Disney is struggling with crappy retread shows from past days' popularity. MTV is basically dead. VH1 is barely hanging on with the slew of trash reality shows that they air. HBO is okay, but I recently let that go from my list of paid streamers. So can BET bounce back? I don't know, maybe. But not in the way that they existed in the past, for sure. Maybe if they did more with the app or with up-and-coming creators, they could strike gold again, but it's unlikely. Personally, I think all the cable TV networks are done for. In a few years, cable will be all but unsustainable as a business. Well, maybe not in a few years, but definitely in the next 10 to 20. Streaming is way easier and way more convenient. It's sort of the same thing that happened to the music business. When streaming came along, it revolutionized the way we listen to music. TV streaming was a bit delayed, but ultimately I think the same will befall all the old school cable networks. And everyone can't charge $10 to $15 for their streaming app and expect us to pay for them all. The reason most of us left cable was because the price got crazy and there was easier ways to view content. No one wants to pay a cable bill all over again just to buy a bunch of apps, especially when you can always go on the high seas and watch whatever you want, if you know what I mean. And it definitely doesn't help when you're a channel like BET creating stuff that people wouldn't even want to watch if it was free. So if asked the question if BET can bounce back, I say probably not. It was fun while it lasted though. The shows they created in the 90s and 2000s will forever be a part of the culture. All of us in a certain age range will forever remember shows like Cedar's World or the fact that Lil Bow Wow was the king of 106 in Park. But is nostalgia enough to keep channels like BET around? I don't think so. But what do you think? Can BET bounce back in the era of streaming, or is it a wrap for them? Hit us up in the comment section and let us know. Also, if you haven't by now, don't forget to smash that like button. Liking and sharing the video again is the best way to help us to continue to grow to be a larger channel, and we can't do it without you guys' help. And if you want to be updated every time we drop a new video just like this, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and then the notification bell. This way, you'll be dinged whenever we drop a new episode. But with that being said, I'm Nate the Great from TakeFlight214.com signing out. Until next time, peace.